Howdy, folks. Happy Thursday. We have some things to discuss. I think Ak has a few rumors. Russ, start us off with the pre-show.
So first pre-show item, we see that Jackie Bradley Jr. signed with the Milwaukee Brewers for a lot less money than what was projected. 2 years, $24 million out after the first season, and makes me wonder why the New York Mets didn't just wait him out. Like, why didn't they wait out JT Realmuto? Why didn't they wait him out? And, like, I get it that there's an edict for the Mets not to spend all their money first year. Like, I've talked about it, written about it. I get that. But if Sandy Alderson would have waited, maybe the price for the Mets would have been $12.5 for this year, and the Mets would pay it, and they'd have a better center fielder than what they currently have in Almaro and Pilar and Nimmo. And Nimmo's pretty good, but I mean, again, at this point, you've brought in two half outfielders, and Nimmo's still the best outfielder, center fielder on your team. So technically, you didn't upgrade except defensively.
Right. I mean, the funny thing is, if you paid Jackie Bradley Jr. $12.5 million for 2 years, that would equal the amount that they were willing to pay Springer for 1 year.
Right. Yeah. The whole thing is, it's all of it. This whole offseason, I don't even care that they were trying to save money. The problem is when they did save the money, they still got the wrong guys.
Well, you said this a couple
of cheaper guys.
You said this a couple months ago, and I think it's unprecedented in the history of professional sports that basically Major League Baseball put a caretaker in place with the Mets to prevent their owner from spending $1 billion because he could basically spend double what he's spending right now, and it wouldn't even phase him because he's worth 16 or 17 billion.
Yeah.
So you've got Sandy Alderson there to basically put the brakes on half the moves that Cohen wanted to do,
or at least the offer money for the players that they went after.
Right, he made them make offers that the players probably wouldn't accept.
Right.
That it's like, which to me it's like, okay, I mean, I'm not for like completely uncontrolled, unfettered, whatever. I get that, and some owners would say, no, we can't do this because even the Yankees, he would outspend the Yankees and probably the Red Sox combined.
Everybody.
Right, but I mean, to put somebody to say, whoa, Steve, you can't do this. I mean, that might have been the condition for the sale. The thing is, the question is now he's got ownership of the team. What's to stop him from saying, okay, I have ownership of the team. They can't take the team away from me. Sandy Alderson, you're fired. And in free agency, I'm going to spend for everything.
Nothing. After this year, I think, Sandy will still be there probably in some sort of lesser role. And maybe Jake Scott used to play for the Dolphins. Now I'm forgetting the Mets. It's Jake something. Maybe he will.
Jake Taylor from Major League.
Right. Maybe he'll take the reins and do something. I mean, that's the hope. But again, it's Zach Scott. I knew Scott was in my mind. All right, so Jake, Zach, close. Scott.
I like Jake Taylor better.
Yeah, but at any rate, that's where that is. All right, so if you're a fan of the New York Jets, and this is what I talk about a lot of times with general managers, if you were a fan of the New York Jets, and Mike, you probably remember hearing when Joe Douglas took over that he wanted to make Jamal Adams a Jet for life. Remember that conversation? It was on ESPN radio in New York. You probably heard it. Well, Jamal Adams isn't a Jet for life. He's in Seattle, maybe for the rest of his career. So now Marcus May has a contract up, or not up, but I think he's entering.
He's like a year. I think he's got 1 year left.
He's got 1 year left, so he's entering into his UFA year. And again, the Jets general manager Joe Douglas says, we want to keep Marcus May here for his career. If you're a fan, tell me how you're supposed to tell the difference, because when he said it before, it didn't happen. So how do you believe it's going to happen now?
And Marcus May's agent is coming out basically saying the same thing that Jamal Adams' agent came out and said before he got traded. I mean, this is the question that I have. How, as a professional organization, do you hope to improve and contend if you don't sign your best players?
Right.
Now, if you don't think the guy is worth the money that he's worth, then okay, you trade him. And they got a pretty decent haul for Jamal Adams. I mean, they weren't a Jamal Adams away from making the playoffs. You know, they were going to be 3-13, 4-12 with Jamal Adams, and instead they were 2-14.
But he'd still be there when they're good too. He'd still be around for 8 years.
Probably. But the impression that I get from the Jets is they want to suck forever. The way they're acting. I mean, the comments yesterday from Douglas basically said, "Take me, I'm yours." So it's regarding Sam Darnold.
Yeah, which is a problem too, because he promised Darnold's parents he would take care of him, and by taking care of him, if that meant getting a substandard offensive line last year and not having any receivers and letting Robbie Anderson go, you didn't take care of him, did you? Now,
no. He's sticking to his word. Yeah. Taking care of him means he's going to trade him someplace else where he won't get killed.
But the idea is this. I wish he would just come out and say something close to the truth instead of saying, well, if calls are made, I'll answer them. Well, of course, that's the most – if you're a 5-year-old, you understand that about sports. You could do a little better than that. We know what the deal is, and we know that there's a 60% chance Sam Darnold's done. But the reason he doesn't want to say he's done, Mike, is because they still may not like who they're going to draft as a quarterback, or they may still like a draft day deal better than they like Zach Wilson, as an example, as that second quarterback. And so that if that happens, then he doesn't have to backtrack and say, well, see, we didn't trade Darnold. I didn't want to trade him. But again, the New York Jets team right now, fan base, is the wrong team to play both sides of the fence on. It really is. I don't think Joe Douglas understands the market. The Philadelphia market is different than the New York Jets market. The Philadelphia market is more brazen in the sense that they're rougher, tougher, and want that instant results. Where the Jets market has been beaten down to, hey, just don't lie to me. Tell me what's going to happen with this team. We'd like to see it move forward. We're trying to build for the future. We get we're no good. And Douglas is treating the Jets like it's the Philadelphia Eagles because that's what he learned, and it's a completely different market.
Interesting.
That's all right. We're ready. Go ahead.
All right. Okay. Yeah. All right. Caught me in the middle of opening my notes. Sorry. I thought you were going to go a little bit longer. Just a second longer would have been good.
You should have just kept saying rolling, and I would.
I got it. I got this. No problem. Here we go. Hold on. Whoa.
The date.
I know. The date is not.
Mike, don't help.
It's not the issue right now. All right. Here we go. All right. Okay. I lost you guys too. Here we are. All right. Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday, March 4th, 2021.
No,
not Tuesday.
It's not Tuesday.
It's hello. Hello, Hockey World. It's Thursday, March 4th, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello, and I disagree with Nick McKinnon in the chat, who says that Eck looks like Odd Job from in the movie Goldfinger.
Yeah, I disagree with that too, and I also
had that before, but no, that's not really. I'm looking at.
And I also disagree that it's Tuesday. I'm Russ Cohen from Sportzone.
Yeah, it's not. You're gonna win that one. Everyone take a drink. Yeah, right. I got the wrong date. Everyone take a drink. Okay. Mm-hmm. There you go.
And you are?
I like it. All right. Thank you.
And you are?
I'm Eklund, and you're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in the company's going to Hockey World. I have slept barely at all for 4 or 5 days now trying to get my family vaccinated. So it's been like crazy. I'm losing my mind, but I think I almost have everybody done. But my son, he's a big one, but I got to do that at the big hospital. So anyway, all right, let's get into it. My starts today, I want to start today with this. Would you attend a hockey game with a full arena? And this is the question I asked today. Like right now, would you do it? Would you
right now,
in the press? Even in the press, I wouldn't. If the arena was totally full, I'm not going.
Right now,
right now,
March the 4th, Tuesday, March the 4th. No, I would not.
So if you're saying it's Sunday night, there were 21,000 at the Wells Fargo, would I go? I would be hesitant.
Yeah, even though you've been vaccinated.
Yes.
Because
even though
the vaccine takes a couple weeks to really get into your
right.
system.
Let's assume you haven't been vaccinated. Okay, like most people out there, a lot of people have been vaccinated, not everybody. So let's assume you haven't been vaccinated. You're in Texas. There's a mask mandate's been taken away, and Dallas and the governor says everybody's open to do business fully. That's what the governor says. So the Dallas Stars can technically sell all their tickets.
Right.
Yes. But they can also say you have to wear masks.
They can say they can say that in the arena, right? They can do
business, yes.
Which is fine, and that's fine. Okay, you have to wear a mask, but still wearing a mask, full arena, are you doing it?
No.
I'm not doing it. Even if I was wearing a mask, you're talking about air that's being breathed in and out by 20,000 people, and if there's a few people that are positive, then that can spread throughout. So until I get vaccinated, until the percentage of people getting vaccinated is higher, no.
And there's one more factor, and Mike sort of alluded to it. Now, for a half arena at Wells Fargo, I'd still show up, and I'll tell you why.
Right.
Because they changed their ventilation system.
Yes. We know Wells Fargo has done a lot to do that. That's good. That's nice. But
we don't know if they did it in Dallas.
Right, we don't know where else they've done it. I think it would probably be interesting to find out, and maybe I should do some research on that. But on what arenas have done that, I know a lot of places have done that in general. It's been something that they really wanted. Now, if you're fully vaccinated, that's a different story. If you're fully vaccinated, that changes things, right? So say you're fully vaccinated, then maybe you go.
Fully vaccinated, sure, go ahead.
Then you're going to go, right? But
wait, we do have to say this, and even when I am fully vaccinated, I will still wear a mask. Why? There's two things. First off, I have not had a cold in over a year.
I know, it has not been something. I agree. That has really been interesting. You know what I wonder about that, Russ? I have a good friend who's like a general doctor, just like your local doctor.
Yeah.
And I haven't asked her yet, how's business? And beyond this, who's getting strep throat? Who's getting, the normal things that doctors deal with, strep throat, bronchitis, colds. Who's getting that when we're all being so freaking careful?
We used to just watch people cough their heads off on a plane and not do anything about it, to cover up, right? Now I would have a mask on for sure on a plane. So there's that factor.
Yeah, I think on an airplane I'll definitely do it Captain Neo, our buddy, has always done it on planes, which is interesting.
I never did, but now I will. And I may do it when I'm in tight quarters, no matter what, indoors now. That may be a normal thing for me, except if I'm in a press box, I probably won't, because there is a certain amount of spacing in the press box. So I probably would feel okay with that. But otherwise, I probably would wear it indoors for a long time coming because of the variant. Even if I'm fully vaccinated,
right,
I am not 100% guarded against this new variant. All I'm 100% guarded against is I'm not going to end up in the hospital.
You probably won't get sick from it, right? You're really bad for it. And that's great, because and there is something to be said also about, people are right about this, about like the kids who are young right now need to get colds. They need to get things. Those are things that have to happen. So any kid who's like one or 1.5 years old has spent most of their lives in a mask at this point. That's tricky. That's bad for people. So I know I've talked to Blake about that. So, but getting back to the main point of this thing here, and that is, the general comfort level. I know we've had Kevin on it before. We'll probably bring this up to him tomorrow. We won't talk much about this today, but I just wanted to get the general thought out from you guys as to what this is, because I know Kevin has said before that he's not going to be comfortable going back into indoors. Like, it basically is saying, would you go to a movie? Would you go to a movie like right now? Like, there's certain things that,
I wouldn't. Okay. I wouldn't go to a movie theater like the theater that I used to work in, which was basically seating like a hockey arena, like people right elbow to elbow. But remember, most movie theaters now are those big lounge chair type things, where the maximum capacity of a big theater is 100 people or 150 people.
Also, the place you're most likely to get sick, honestly. I mean, the difference between a movie theater and a sporting event is people are screaming at sporting events, and screaming is projecting things out too.
You could sit in a movie theater with the mask on, 6 feet away from somebody, and I don't think you'd be fine. But yes, at a hockey game, you're eating nachos, you're drinking, you're talking, you're yelling and screaming, probably at the referee because the referee screwed you over. I mean, that's the normal part of the experience.
This is also, I know some people made fun of Japan when they said, hey, we're allowing people in sporting events now, but they can't yell. This is why they didn't want them yelling, is because of this. Now, Joe Morello's like, what is everybody scared of? We're not scared. We're trying to prevent it. I don't want to get it because I don't know what's going to happen to me 5 years, 10 years from now. I had a family member that got it and died. So I'm not scared of it, but I am very aware of it.
Yeah, I mean, there are some things like that we have to be careful about, even once you get it, and we still don't know the transfer. And you can. And I was just talking to my daughter who was in town from last night for my son's birthday, and she's like, she was basically saying, there's people at Lehigh now, the college he goes to, that have gotten it twice. She knows 3 people who've gotten it twice. It's not.
I know somebody whose parent got it twice already.
Yeah, it's not. You can get it twice. It's not. It's not like we think it is. I mean, whether or not they're getting different variants each time, it's possible, but who knows? They're not really testing that closely on that kind of stuff. So yeah, you got to be careful.
And we can talk to we can talk to Kevin about this tomorrow. But the interesting thing is that I know locally, like next week, they're going to be starting to get the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, and the amount of vaccines being distributed and produced is going to increase exponentially to the point that Biden came out a couple days ago and said that by late April, early May, almost everybody will either be vaccinated or there are enough vaccines out
every adult. He said every adult.
Right. And now the thing that, bringing it back to hockey, I heard Chris Johnston from Sportsnet on Hockey Central this talking about, well, even if everybody in the U.S. or most everybody, and there's herd immunity, he doesn't think that Canada is going to allow fans in the buildings for the rest of the season and the playoffs. So whatever one team makes the playoffs of the Canadian division, that they will be playing in front of no fans. And if that's the case, I'm telling you, I think they will go to the bubble so they can get fans, because that's revenue.
Right. And I think Mike's right, but I also would have to say, let's say what Joe Biden is saying is right, which again, they're hoping, right? You can't ever hold it to it, because for one thing, you can't force every adult to get the vaccine. There's going to be some that don't want it, or
many who don't. I know people who don't want it. So
or working. There's all these things, right? But at the end of the day, let's say by May that we are starting to get herd immunity through vaccinations. There is no reason, at the very least, for Canada to open up the border again to the U.S. There is no reason not to at that point.
Yeah. It's the case of I'm expecting that I'm going to have to prove at the border either electronically or with the
vaccine certificate,
right, that I have been vaccinated. And you know what? Canadian Customs, I'm ready and willing. Just let me in the friggin' country.
Yeah, no, and we'll talk. I think it's interesting though, and the thing that we're gonna have to keep an eye on is what this does to the NHL business wise and stuff like that, and how if they are letting fans in or not letting fans in, or when will people be comfortable. I mean, I have a good friend who was trying to get Phillies tickets, and said that he goes on StubHub right now and you can't get a Phillies ticket for like under $100, which is like. I mean,
that's secondary market. That's not what they're selling them for.
Right, that's secondary market, but they're all sold out on the regular market, so that's why they're that high.
Yeah,
and that's because the Phillies are limiting it to the amount of people, and he's like, that's just simply not worth it to go to a regular season baseball game.
Although to be honest, like with my opening day streak going to New York all the time, I spend about $100 a seat normally. Anyhow, but I will tell you this: this is the formula, because I heard
opening days are going to bring it way more than that, even probably.
Yes. Well, now this year, but not really. So this is the formula like the Mets are using. First, they have to do it to their season ticket holders, right? They're allowed to have a percentage of those season ticket holders in. So if nothing changes in New York beyond what's recent, those are the people that'll be in the building first. Now, if they sell their seats, that's on them, and then you could buy them, right? Secondary market.
Yeah.
After that, though, they have sold like group seating. And I do I'm in on a group seating for the Mets for opening day. But they said it has to be like that next level where they open up, and let's say they're allowing 8,000 people into Citi Field, which is like a 30,000 capacity, which may happen by April 1st.
It's a tradition for me. Like you have a tradition going to the Mets opening day, Russ. It's a tradition for me to go to the Buffalo Bisons opening day locally. Normally it's in April. This year they've moved, because they've delayed AAA till beginning of May. It's opening on May the 4th. They sent out a press release yesterday. They don't know whether they're having fans or not.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like, how can you even sell tickets if you
they're
don't know?
Allowed to, because Cuomo has allowed them to.
Right, but
they're allowed to have fans. But and outdoors is a different story than indoors. Like hockey's a very different thing than going to a baseball game outside. That's for sure.
This is the underlying answer to this one, and at least they were honest about it with Comcast. When they said 500 fans, Comcast is like, we can't have like 300 employees, 500 fans. That's what we need to open the building. It's not worth it to us to have the fans in if it's 500 fans because it's costing us money. That's probably why the Bisons may not, Mike, because they don't want to bring their employees in and have 1,200 fans.
No, that's true. There definitely is a point at which you lose money by bringing fans in. That's for sure. I mean, you see what you have to open up. All right, let's move on to the hockey actually itself. Yeah. And the player I've been looking at today and talking to people about, because the Ekholm thing is out there obviously, and it's going to be a battle.
Start with really?
Yes, that's what I'm going to start with.
Okay.
What do you want to start with?
No, you do what you.
I mean, I know there's other news, but I'm just talking about what I was.
You do you. It's fine.
This is what I personally have been talking to people. So I was trying to. That's what I'm going to talk about. But then let's get into the other stuff that's out there for sure. But go ahead, you guys start. Actually, now I'm embarrassed. Continue.
Don't be embarrassed. No.
You go, Mike. What's on the news? What's in the news today, Mike?
Russ, I don't know. What's in the news?
No, if we're gonna
continue, I'll do mine later.
How about 13-1 in a 3-game series? How about 39-year-old Civ in last night? And it was funny. I posted what I normally say about McDavid and Draisaitl. And the fact that they're wasting these players, and until the Oilers learn how to play defense more competently and until they get a number one goaltender, they're wasting these players. And Terry Koshan, who's a fellow reporter from the Toronto Sun, said, when was this tweet dated? And I says, this is an annual tweet because this has been going on since 2016. I mean, honestly, I feel sorry for Jack Eichel in Buffalo and for Connor McDavid, lesser for Connor McDavid and Draisaitl, because at least they've had some modicum of success. They've made the playoffs a couple times. But yes, the 3 games, and I know the Leafs are playing great right now. They're number 1 in the NHL. I'm not focusing on that. I'm focusing on Edmonton. They had a 5-minute rally at the beginning of the game. They couldn't beat Freddie Anderson. Yeah. Jimmy Vesey scores a goal, and they crumbled. And
they lost 3 games to the Toronto Maple Leafs.
This was the hottest team in the NHL coming in.
And they played the best team in the NHL. And the best team in the NHL in the beginning of March won. Well, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot to this. Like, there's a lot more to this than that. Obviously, Toronto is tough right now, and Toronto is playing better than they've played all year. They're at their peak right now.
Yeah, right now.
Edmonton's waiting for their goalie that they just picked up to go through waivers, to go through quarantine. All that's going to help too. Right now, that Mike, you're laying it all on Mike Smith.
Last night I am, because I thought a couple of the goals early on were very stoppable that he didn't stop, and then it was just it degenerated into a cluster F of the highest proportion. And then that's the thing. It's like, now it's a crisis of confidence in Edmonton, because they've lost three games to the Leafs, and now they sort of have to recover. But the thing is, it's like, okay, yeah, you can start winning again because McDavid and Draisaitl are tough to control. But I'm looking at the end game in terms of them having success in the postseason. And Russ, you made this point. Yeah, they can win games. They can even win series. But are they going to win a cup where the way they're playing and with the players that they're playing with now? Not a friggin' chance.
Right. This was the analogy I had. Back in the day, the Utah Jazz had Stockton and Malone, and they were. And again, it's a different sport, but just hear me out. Maybe the most dynamic duo in all the sport, in all the NBA.
Yes.
They did make it to the finals once, and they still ended up losing to Michael Jordan and the Bulls. I think McDavid and Draisaitl could get them to a final, but I don't think they could do enough to have them win a final. And I think that is the inherent problem right now with the Oilers. Now, I do think Stahl helps their odds, but it still may not be enough.
It still might not be. I mean, honestly, they're going to have to get by Toronto, obviously, to get even out of the division, right? That's going to be tough. I think that in a way is obviously we saw that right now Toronto matches up nicely against Edmonton, There's no two ways about that. The way this is the kind of game that the Maple Leafs want to play, and they love playing this kind of game.
Well, no. Well, I mean, okay, they scored 6 goals last night, but
think about the difference between Edmonton and Boston, Mike, in a playoff series.
No, but the first 2 games of this series, the Leafs were playing like the Bruins. They were playing suffocating defense.
I know.
So, I mean, that type of game is something that I don't think Edmonton is capable of right now, in spite of the talent that they have. Like I was exchanging messages with somebody who covers the Oilers yesterday, and I was saying it's like I like the talent on defense. I think Darnell Nurse is a great defenseman. I like Ethan Bear. I like some of the young kids. They just don't know how to play that game. And, Cameron Young here is saying, I'm wondering if Tippett is the right coach. The question is Tippett their Babcock, meaning he's a defensive coach like Babcock was, but this team is not listening to him on how to play defense.
Here's what I'll say about Tippett. I do like Tippett, but has he proven that he's a Stanley Cup winning coach? He is not. Yeah. And that's, that may seem unfair, but so far that's the book on him.
Tippett's been in 2 really interesting situations, Russ. What do you think about it? Like in Arizona, he got a very under-talented team to perform above average by playing good defense all the time. Right. In Edmonton, he's got a very over-talented team.
Yes,
and it's a very different kind of coaching. It
is, and I'm not blaming this on Tippett, but I am saying it is possible, Eck, that they do need a more offensive coach, because it's hard to imagine they're going to be so much better defensively in the next 2 years. Now, Bouchard will help when he comes up, and he can be physical, and he definitely could help. But I can't make you an argument that in 2 years they're going to be a way above average defense. I don't know if they're there, because Broberg's not good defensively. He's another offenseman, really.
Yeah.
And so
he'll replace TJ Brody.
Yeah. So I can't honestly.
I'm sorry, Tyson Berry.
I can't honestly tell you, though, that that's where they're going to be. So it could be that they need a more offensive coach to open things up, not to outscore everybody, but just to let those other offensive players not on the McDavid-Draisaitl line sort of open their game up a little too. Like Yamamoto the other day was playing keep away from the other team. He could have a lot more points, I think, if he was allowed to.
They seem so afraid of him. The Oilers always hide him. They put him in.
It's crazy.
Protecting him when they don't need to protect him at all.
I agree.
I mean, I'll just answer this, Esmir, and see what you guys think. Should the Oilers trade RNH, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, for Georgiev? Well, first of all, RNH is an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year, so
that's the obvious answer is no because of that.
Right, but I do think that, but I don't know if Georgiev is a number 1. I think he's a good number 2.
I'm torn on that one. It's a tough one.
Even his history of work in the KHL doesn't tell us.
Yeah, the backup. I mean, what we've seen as the backup to Lundqvist, in the past. It makes goalies look good sometimes.
Cam Talbot,
Cam Talbot's the best example. Yes.
Here is what Ken Holland should do, and I never should I tell Ken Holland what to do, because the guy's won Stanley Cups, and who the hell am I? But
that's
you're Mike from Buffalo.
Yes, I'm Mike from Buffalo. There's my expertise. But
just answering the question. Sorry.
With the expansion, with some teams having issues in terms of 2 goaltenders not being able to protect and being able to protect only one, it is an opportunity for a team that is looking for a goaltender to say, contact Ron Francis and say, hey, claim that guy for me, and I'll give you something good for him. And they're, okay, so for example, Vegas can only protect one guy, Leonard or Fleury. So they're not going to protect Fleury because he's got 1 year left in his contract. They're going to protect Leonard. Okay, pick Fleury and I'll trade you for him. There's your goalie. Yeah.
I mean No, I agree. I mean, Fleury in Edmonton is like the perfect goalie for the Oilers, because he's played behind. That's the way Fleury plays really well with a lot of shots.
Giving up that kind of assets, and Vegas is not trading with them.
That's a big thing to me. That's where you're Vegas. You're a little.
But in expansion,
everyone in the Western Conference wants to keep goalies away from the Oilers, because I mean the reality is that if you give the Oilers a goalie,
you're going to lose.
A really good goalie. It changes the whole dynamic of that Western Conference. I mean, that Western Conference becomes, assuming it's the Western Conference next year, and not like what we're dealing with now. It changes the dynamic in a big, big way, right?
I mean, the Rangers are in a good situation because Georgiev is exempt or Shesterkin is exempt, so they don't have to worry. And Montreal's going to lose Jake Allen if they protect Carey Price, which I'm assuming. But there are situations out there where the second goalie or the goalie who's going to be in the expansion draft is going to be a good goaltender, and instead of having to pay through your nose to get a goalie, this is the way to probably get one.
Can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah.
Should Vegas be exempt?
Wait a second. They are exempt.
No, they are. They are. But my question is, should they?
I apologize. That's right.
They are exempt.
They are exempt. So yeah, they don't have
to give anybody to Seattle. But should they be? I mean, they are the best team that's not the Maple Leafs in hockey right now, or they've already been to a Stanley Cup final. I mean,
yeah, but they don't have as many players. They don't have the breadth of prospects.
They're only losing one player, Russ. I mean, like one player.
I know, but again, to be fair, they don't have the breadth of prospects that other organizations do.
But they're right. So, their team is stacked.
I get what you're saying, but that's not their fault.
And it's really expansion teams really aren't about prospects. Expansion teams are really about.
No, they're supposed to be about.
But expansion drafts are about older players. They're about
older players extending their career in a market that nobody else would take them, but they can play there because they're new fans and they're going to be willing and accepting, and you can get 2 more years on a career there. That's what it used to be like.
Right, that's what it usually is, or it's about a player that's like a top 6 player that's stuck on a 4th line somewhere, like we saw with what's his name, Marchessault and guys like that who've given the more responsibility turn into much better players, right? So
yeah,
I don't think the Vegas Knights should be. I mean, granted. They are way ahead of where any expansion team should be, obviously. But
they're going to be behind in a couple of years. It depends.
But the rules are that
can swing on that.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think it's just interesting. I mean, I think it's really an interesting.
It is
dilemma because they are so good so fast. But maybe shouldn't you just look at how good they are? I mean, should maybe the teams that are exempt from expansion drafts be like the bottom 3 teams of the league? Like not. No,
but you have to be consistent because the next one that comes in, you don't know what's going to. And I know everybody's like, we don't want any more expansion. There's going to be another team. It's going to happen.
I don't think there is. I think we're going to see teams move around after this. I think after this, we're going to see an optimization of 30 teams.
You could say, for example, when the expansion draft happened a few years ago with Vegas, and the Leafs were one of the worst teams in the league at that point. They had a bunch of young. Well, actually, they had made the playoffs that year, but they had a bunch of young players. So the only guy they lost was Brendan Leipzig. They were able to protect, like Matthews, Marner, Nylander were all exempt.
Right.
And they ended up protecting a guy like Connor Carrick on defense. They didn't have enough guys to protect. So I don't think those teams should be exempt, but what you're going to get from them is not going to be great because they don't have enough good players to actually protect.
I mean, the Flyers lost the classic guy you lose in the expansion draft in Bellemare. Like he's the guy you lose in the expansion draft. I mean, he's he's good. It was a great pickup by them. I mean, he was a really important player for the Flyers too. But you couldn't. But you had too many young guys. You couldn't protect them.
Yeah, they could use him right now.
Oh, believe many teams can use him, and he's still like one of the more underrated. When we talked the other day about 3rd-line centers like Craig McTavish that a team could use, there's your guy. That's Pierre Bellemare. He's that guy. He's that McTavish, Joel Otto type character who can come in, win faceoffs for you, play 2-way hockey, have some skill. Yeah, I mean that's the guy. I forget who we were talking about Toronto with that situation, right? Like, yes. Well,
let's just finish with this before we move on to other things. Elliot Friedman talked last night about the Leafs. They're still pursuing a top 6 forward, or maybe top 9 forward to sort of extend the depth of their forward lineup. And it sounds like that's what Kyle Dubas is aiming for. He did point out, and I think this was pretty interesting. The Leafs have a gap in their schedule from March the 12th to the 26th, where they play 5 games in 14 days, which with the current 14-day quarantine.
That's a vacation for this NHL.
Right. So
16 times in March. It's insane.
Right. So essentially what it is that if they make a trade around the 12th, then they won't be losing that player that they're acquiring for a whole crap load of games. It won't be 8 or 9. It'll be 5. So then he'll be able to play by March the 26th. Now, there's a lot of speculation about Michael Granlund and Nashville. I don't particularly think he's a good fit with the Leafs. I think he's more of what they already have. Maybe he fits, in terms of skill. I think that, a guy that I think fits with the Leafs, but it doesn't matter what I think. It's what Kyle Dubas thinks, is Eric Stahl. Eric Stahl can play wing and can play center. His salary is relatively cheap at $3.25 million, and he's a veteran who I think can still play and probably wants to.
Mike, been so unimpressive. I mean, like over the top unimpressive, I think.
Right. Well, he's a UFA, and Buffalo's
getting lots of time. He's getting time, and it's like
I don't think you can judge the players in Buffalo based on the way they're playing in Buffalo because it's a disaster.
No, I know that, but I think that if I'm the Leafs right now, I am definitely, and we'll talk about who other people we're going to go for too at the trade deadline in a second, because this is obviously not just Toronto, but this is an interesting point for sure. But the thing here is that Eric Stahl, when you go get Eric Stahl, you're getting another Thornton Simmons, you're getting another character like that, right? Which is Spezza, which is working for them, but there's a point at which you don't want too many of them. I mean, and Eric Stahl, I think, is one too many of them. I think
he didn't work in New York. He didn't
work in New York. He really didn't work in Minnesota. He didn't work in Buffalo. I mean, he worked pretty well in Minnesota, but he didn't. But in Buffalo, he has really been. And yes, the Buffalo Sabres are a mess, but that shouldn't matter to Eric Stahl. Like the point of Eric Stahl is that that shouldn't matter to him. The point of Eric Stahl is he's the guy who leads the Buffalo out of that crap. And
he's not staying in Buffalo.
He's not staying in Buffalo, but I don't think he's the right fit for that particular team. I think he's going to go somewhere else. And I do think
maybe you're right, but I'm just saying that I think he is a better fit for what they're looking for, which is versatility, depth in their lineup, and a quality player. And somebody who I think we've known as a quality guy throughout his career. In New York, when he was traded to New York, he was injured, Russ. Remember, he got hurt. And he was not
hurt at the beginning, Mike. He was
he wasn't.
No. But
he played for a good couple of weeks and didn't do anything.
And there are other ones. I'm just saying, I think
if I'm Toronto, I am not making a move right now at all. Like to me, they're
going to. They're going
to, but that's not the right thing to do. Like the point is that
I think it is.
They found some balance. You're beating teams 13 to, it's like
you can't. Yeah, but you can't. Okay, you cannot say, "Oh my God, we're going fantastic right now." I don't want to mess things up. Right now, like you're going to have downturns, you're going to have slumps. It's how good your team is on May the 5th when the playoffs start, and what they want is depth throughout their lineup. Dallas had a deep lineup last year. Kivi Ranta scored in game 7 to save their ass.
No, that's you.
Was an extra player,
right? But I think that the issue, if I'm the Leafs, there's one glaring thing that they have to address, which is they need to get a quality third goalie that they can play because they are one injury away from being in view.
They don't believe that, Act.
They don't believe that, Act. They believe that now.
If you're going to go out and spend assets for Eric Stahl, like what Washington did with Craig Anderson, that's what they need to do.
They don't believe they need to do that.
That's insane. This is, and I don't know you need a good backup, right? But you need a good third goalie.
Save percentage right now, Michael Hutchinson. He has a 943 save percentage. I'm saying
he must be the best goalie ever. Then
I've
never seen him play before this time.
Jesus Christ! I mean,
come on, Mike. He's Mike Hutchinson.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, if they're on their third goalie, they're dead anyway.
Right.
Hold on.
This discussion every year.
While Eck rubs his head for a minute, I do want to answer 2 questions. First one is, these are Ranger related. First one is, I don't believe the Rangers will be trading Georgiev this year or next year. People are looking to include him in trades, media and otherwise. But the reality is Adam Huska, Olaf Lindbaum, none of them are ready to be a backup. They're not going to spend big money on a backup. And they have Georgiev for another year after this year. And then they still have RFA rights. They're going to exhaust all of that before they ever think of trading him while they're waiting for Shesterkin to become the Shesterkin they believe he will. That's one thing. Then they asked about D'Angelo. And until the Rangers eat money, which they won't, D'Angelo is sitting home for the rest of the season. When the Rangers buy him out, maybe there'll be a team or two that take a risk on him, but that's going to be a big risk on the PR end of it. And with Voynov, now it's not the same situation. I understand, but teams may back off in the same way in this climate that we live in now. So it's possible D'Angelo has to go play somewhere else next year. Don't be shocked.
Well, he has to play somewhere.
Yes,
Well, next year won't fall out, but I mean he has
to go to the AHL today.
He has to play at another. He says he'll go to any AHL team, and he's out. He knows that Hartford will not take him, so he said he would play anywhere in the AHL just so he could get back going again. So maybe he can make himself.
AHL teams are not going to touch him.
Can I say something? When I heard this, the first thing that came to my mind was like I've been playing in like lots of men's hockey leagues, and a lot of you guys have out there in the back. First thing that came to my mind is there's always that really good player that like just has to call to every team in the league to try to get him to take him, and everyone's like, "Oh man, I'm not gonna do it." It's just like there's that guy, you know what I mean? Before the season, he's like, "Yeah, he's really talented," but he also.
Why would an AHL team take a PR hit? They're not going to do it. Nobody's going to do it.
Well, Russ, if at one time they would do it, it's now when they don't have fans.
No, but there's still. But Mike, in the advent of social media, they'll do it. But that's only for this year. Next year, when he gets bought out, a team can pick him up.
Yeah,
let's talk about news. And Sam Bennett healthy scratch tonight for Ottawa. That is interesting, of course.
I don't think a team will pick him up. Anyhow.
And that's the other name that I think would be intriguing for Toronto.
Better. I think that's better. He more fits into what Toronto's trying to do long term.
Yeah, and he's there might be a little insider thing there because Sam Bennett played in Kingston for Doug Gilmour. Doug Gilmour I know he's an ambassador for the Leafs, but he's still part of the Leaf organization. So he's never going to work out in Calgary. There's too many things going on with him in Calgary. I don't know if but if he gets a second chance someplace else, that's the thing they're scared about. I said this before. What they're scared about is Sam Bennett going someplace else and succeeding. You can't think that way. You got to think, I got to get the most for the guy and move on.
I think you're right, Mike. I do think Sam Bennett can play the game. There's no question. And I do think for whatever reason, he needs to get out of that market. Gilmour is still an ambassador for the Leafs, but I don't think he's going to overtly trying to.
No,
he's not going to do that. He's not.
I'm just saying they could basically talk to Gilmour and say, what do you think of this kid?
Yes, I think they'll do that rather than Gilmour nudging Bennett when they're in the executive washing room saying, hey, the Leafs could use you. I don't think that's going to happen.
Now, I mean,
you want to talk Eichel?
I want to talk Eichel, yeah. Because the other night, of course, Eichel's the Rangers playing the State of Rangers. All this, there's all this stuff going on about how much the Rangers ride Eichel. Larry Brooks says if Eichel's available. We all know that the Rangers will be after Eichel. I mean, there's no question about it. They're not alone, as we talked about before. There's at least half the league that will be after Eichel. And I think that. So I went to talk to my Buffalo sources, and they got nothing, which was interesting to me because normally we get like, we're not trading him at all and I got nothing. So that was curious. So then what I did is I talked to there's 5 GMs that I really trust, that I really like, that I can talk to about anything all the time. And these guys are really good. They call me just to shoot the breeze sometimes. These guys, I called them up. I got in touch with 3 of them. And 2 of them had done what happens because if Eichel's name gets put out in rumors, GMs will just start calling Buffalo because of it. They'll say, so are you trading? Are you really going to move Eichel? It gives them, it's basically a conversation starter. Hey, I read that article, man. Eichel, huh? You're going to possibly move him? This is how these things go. 2 of them had done that with the Sabres, and both were told that they're not even discussing it, that there's no way they're moving it. That is completely off the table. That
I don't believe that.
And yeah, no, it's 100%. And they, and now, I read my article, and we talked about expiration dates plenty of times, that things do expire. But I think this is a long expiration date. I think you're looking at a 2-year expiration date on that. I think there's no way they're moving him for a while here.
I feel the same.
Russ, I believe that the Sabres are not trading Eichel more than the Houston Texans are not trading Deshaun Watson. I think that's BS because I think they're going to trade him because eventually he's going to hold out, and it's
That's a different situation though.
Yeah, I don't think Eichel has gone to the Pagulas yet because I think that would be the first step. He's going to go to the ownership and say, this is untenable. I need to go. I've been in the league for 6 years. I've never made the playoffs. I don't think it's to that point yet, but I do think that right now the situation is, Larry Brooks. And I said this yesterday. Larry Brooks clearly got something dropped to him from the Ranger organizations saying we're not going to be extorted by the Buffalo Sabres. Well, honestly, Larry, And honestly, Jeff Gorton, if you're not ponying up either Alexis Lafreniere or Capo Caco as one of 2 or 3 pieces in a deal for Jack Eichel, don't bother friggin' calling, because the Sabres are not going to trade a guy who is legitimately one of the top 5 centers in the NHL without a package of probably 3 or 4 really good assets.
Right. There's no question.
Yeah.
There's no question. There is also something in the chat room, Eck. I do want to say it again. Adam Fox isn't Brian Leetch simply because he can't score 105 points and be capable of leading the league in scoring. There's very few defensemen in the history of the game that could ever do it. So don't compare anybody to Brian Leetch, because the odds are of a defenseman being like Brian Leetch are like 1 in a million, especially going back to that same franchise. We are seeing some guys that are close and in some ways better, but not in the point category. So don't compare them.
Yeah, from the Rangers. It's probably a deal like one of the good young forwards.
Yeah,
Caco, Lafreniere,
Kratov's doing really well.
Kratstov, all high draft picks. Probably one of the young defensemen, either Miller or Fox or whoever,
or even could be Lundqvist, who will come over next year.
Right. Yeah. I would think that with the Sabres' goaltending problems, they'd probably want Georgiev.
I don't know if the Rangers would do it. I think they might stop there.
Okay, or then probably at least a number 1.
Yes.
So
they'll definitely give him a number 1.
Yeah, so 3 or 4 pieces. I mean, that's the start. Yeah. That's the start of a structure of a deal. Now, this is the thing, and I think Eck was hinting at this. Eichel has a no move clause in his contract that kicks in after next season. That could be, and I said this yesterday, that could be essentially the James Harden move, where he says, okay, I want to be traded, and I only want to be traded to Boston, and I won't approve a trade unless you trade me to Boston. And then that limits the Sabres to what they can get. If they're going to trade him, they're going to trade him before the no move clause kicks.
Oh, absolutely.
So
I think they're going to try and get all the runway out of Jack Eichel they can in hopes of turning the franchise around before they do it. There is no reason to trade him this season, like you said. There is no benefit for them to do it.
There's none. And you're simply telling they're shutting teams down like immediately. So if the Rangers think they were, you could say about Brooks, maybe the Rangers feel like they're being strong armed by Buffalo. That strong arm would be them telling them that they're not available at all.
Right. Well, it's not just Larry Brooks, because Fluto Shinzawa wrote a piece in the Athletic a couple days ago that was basically the same thing. Well, here's what the basically speculating.
I'm and listen, geez, I mean, look who's talking, right? But this is worth writing a rumor article about. Like if you're a hockey writer, like that's all I'm saying. Like this is out there, right? And
I do that too. Like I put 2 and 2 together. It doesn't mean I'm getting a source from Kyle Dubas, but you're just thinking out loud and saying this is okay. But the thing is that, do you think that the Buffalo Sabres organization is going to trade Jack Eichel inside their own division? No. If they're going to trade him and they get equal value, they're going to trade him to the West. They're going to trade him as far away from their division and their conference.
Division. And maybe not to the West. I mean, that's a big because trading to
Why not? If you get the best offer from
if you get the best offer, you get the best offer. But if somebody blows you away in the Metro division, next year when we back to the Metro division, I think I think it's worth it to think about. The Metro,
but not inside your own division, not inside. It really worked out well for the Leafs and Phil Kessel.
Right. No, it's not there. He's not. They would not trade him to Toronto or a place like that. That I would agree with.
No, I'm saying Boston. I'm saying Eichel's from Boston, so you think that there's always been speculation about Boston wanting.
Yeah, we talked about that, and I also somebody reminded me who was on the bus. I've told this story before. I was on the bus with Jack Eichel, and I was on the bus with him for an hour and a half. So him and McDavid sitting directly behind me, and the person who was sitting next to me on the bus reminded me the other day of that discussion. And someone said to Eichel, "Well, you're going to play for Boston eventually, right?" And Eichel says, "No effing way," was his response. So, I mean, and that's not to say. And he laughed, of course, because he's like, "That would be. I don't need that. I don't need that hassle," is what he went on to basically say in so many words. That one because I couldn't say on the show, but I don't need the hassle. And it was he's nothing against Boston at all, but just one of those things.
It's like LeCavier in Montreal. So you wrote about Savard today.
Yeah, let's get to the big story because we were waiting on the big story here. I thought I would save it to the end of the show because that would be more exciting to talk about David Savard. Famous. I was going to lead with it, but anyway, we'll stay there.
Defenseman.
So, he's a good defenseman. He's a top 4 defenseman, and
on some teams, yes.
I think generally he's a 4 or 5. Okay, so but I think he's a 3, 4, 5. Put it in there somewhere. Okay. So he's more towards the top 4 than he is a bottom 2 pairing, but he's right on that edge. So, we've talked about the fact that Mattias Ekholm's available, and Ekholm, and believe me, the Capitals are really hot on Ekholm. That's a big possibility. I heard that just before the show. I'm going to write that later. And that there's interesting there because what I remember about Ekholm and Peter Laviolette in Nashville was that when the rumors were going around about them making a trade, someone who I really trust in Nashville told me that Laviolette would trade Roman Josi before he traded Mattias Ekholm. That's how much he loves Mattias Ekholm. So that Laviolette has that. So I'm not surprised at all to hear the Capitals involved with that. And the Capitals always seem to be involved with this is like the Shattenkirk thing in the past. We've seen these things. But anyway, Ekholm's expensive, and we talked about that. You guys are saying that. I mean, the Flyers are not. I talked to people; they're not going to give up Frost or Farabee for him. It's just not going to happen. It's possible they give up Cam York. I was told that's possible. Okay. Cam York and 2 first-round draft picks were thrown out there in a talk I had.
I don't know about 2, but 1. I mean,
2 not for Savard, for Ekholm. We're starting with Ekholm. So that number is really high. 2 first-round draft picks and Cam York, who could be a top 2 defenseman in this league. And the top 2 and the 2 first-round draft picks. I mean, the Flyers are in that spot for the first time in a long time where they feel like they can trade a first-round draft pick.
That's essentially giving up 3 first-round picks.
Yeah, it is.
So I mean,
you have to resign. No, I mean you have one for 1 more year, but you have to after that you have to resign.
Here's the funny thing. I understand why they feel like they are in a position where they could trade a first-round pick. I will also tell you that most of their great prospects came from the Hextall prior era, and I wouldn't feel as confident that I could trade away first yet because I haven't seen enough from a lot of their guys, including Cam York, who I really love. Now, Cam York, top of the heap of these guys, and Bobby Brink would be like the next in the heap of these guys, but it's not the same level guys as Farabee, and so I kind of and even Sanheim yet.
And as we know, Russ, when you have a general manager who takes over for another general manager, that the new GM always trades the old GM's prospects. So I don't see them wanting to trade Cam York. Because Cam York is Chuck Fletcher's pick.
Well, it's Brent Flair. It's Brent Flair's guy, and I agree with you. But at some point, I do think the one thing that the Flyers have that other teams don't is the pressure of Comcast wanting them to go a certain amount of rounds in the playoffs to make a certain amount of money because they are a corporation and need to do that. And so that does play into this.
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, and it's been a while since they had a run, and they've always blamed the goalies, and they, right now, you can still blame the goalies if they got there, but
he's so good. That's the funny thing.
I know, and that that's definitely being overplayed. I think that I don't want to get into the coaching, but let's move on to what I'm not going to get into the Flyers right now.
But let me just
Savard, because we have to get to Savard.
Right, and let me just say, I haven't read your article because
Savard is a right defenseman as opposed to Ekholm, who's a left defenseman.
Correct.
That gives him that's definitely an advantage Savard on that one. He's not Ekholm upside offensively, but defensively pretty close. And also just one of those guys that is the reason the Columbus Blue Jackets are always pretty good. Yep. He's one of those reasons. He's one of the guys that you get in there that the reason that they are so hard to score on and that they are challenging and that they will battle a team in a playoff series is because of guys like Savard. This is actually, what's his name? Wenberg. Wenberg, a guy that moved away. Same kind of thing.
No, Torts, I think, moved him away.
Yeah, but I think he's another one of those players that makes the Blue Jackets better than they should be.
But Savard was utilized really well by Torts in the last 2 playoffs. He played last year with Gavrikov on their shutdown pairing. He played very good. 10, only 3 assists in 10. He's not an offensive defenseman, but he's a good fit to replace a Niskanen because he's right shot. Yeah. and I think he's capable of playing top 4 minutes, and he's a rental, and his salary is comparable to what Ekholm is making. He's 4.25. Ekholm is under 4.
Yeah.
So you might need Jarmo to retain a little salary, unless you're trading salary back to him. But the price tag is not going to be 3 first-round picks.
Yeah, and if you get around not having to give up York, would you trade? I think they might trade 1 first-round pick for him. I think that could happen, and that I think would get him. I think Columbus would have to look at that and be like, okay, we'll do that.
I think that's plausible. I agree.
So Savard, but the thing that Savard also does, and the other defenseman, which we'll get into more of the defenseman too. There's a couple more defensemen that are pretty high up there.
Well, can I ask the first obvious question about this one?
Yeah.
Why aren't they going to re-sign him?
Why aren't they going to resign?
Maybe they are, Russ, but maybe they are.
Maybe they. I mean, I think the thinking is that they need to do something to add to their coffers a little bit here. They can't just let a guy go out. They've let so many guys go out. I think that the issue is also Columbus is amplified with what's happened in the past of not trading guys at the deadline. So I think that they're going to trade, and the problem, is you trade them out of Columbus, they go someplace else they like better. They're never going to get them to come back to Columbus.
Which is
you mean trading all those draft picks for guys who weren't going to stay, and not trading Panarin and
Bobrovsky, and I still think
finally coming back to haunt them.
Right. So Ek, I'm looking at the puzzle here, right? And right now the puzzle looks bad in the sense that Jones has a year left at 5'4". Werenski, his contract will be up next year, but he's an RFA, so they still hold rights to him. So if you are doing this with Savard and you do intend on paying Jones, and then if they're not going to spend to the cap, what is actually left for Werenski? Right now they're like within $1 million of the cap, but they have LTIR space. This is right. My bigger question is they don't have a lot of guys to replace even Savard. So
no.
That's why the team.
Russ, that's why I think what's going on here is that we don't know what the we don't know what the negotiations are between Savard and Kekalainen, but if Savard is not giving them any kind of hometown discount, then what's the point of you can go out and bid for him like a free agent just like everybody else can. So you may as well trade him, since you're not going to make the playoffs if they don't think they're making it, and get what you can for him, and then try to sign him as a free agent in the summer.
Okay, but this is the other bigger problem. So Gavrikov is okay, but he's not a top 4. Kukan is not a top 4. Harrington, Gabriel Carlson is definitely not a top 4, even though he's a young guy. He's a bottom pairing guy. Delzato will look great in the Torch system, but he's not a top 4. So
Andrew Peak.
Andrew Peak maybe, but he's not ready. So, you'd still have to get a guy for at least another 2 years to be your top 4. Basically, their defense could be in big trouble in 2 years.
But what I'm saying is that might be Savard next year. They might go out and try to re-sign him. Why not? If you can get if you think that you're not going to make the playoffs, and you can get a first-round pick for David Savard, and then go out in free agency and re-sign him, why would you?
He's not going to re-sign there because he's making 4.2. Somebody will offer him 6. Oh, they'll offer him more than 5.
David Savard 6? No way.
I don't think much. 5.5. I'll go that high.
So let's say they go 5.5 for 5 or 6 years. There's no way Columbus is doing that.
And it depends what he does, though. So if he goes to Philly or wherever he goes, say he goes to anywhere and has a good playoff run, 5.5 is in there.
Let's say 5.5 for 5 years. Zach. Is Columbus going to say, we'll match that? Come back.
Yeah. No, it's hard to say. They have. No, because they're already putting so much money in the other 2 defensemen. They can't. They're going to have 2 of the highest paid defensemen in the league there, and they're going to be stuck. So they're going to be in the opposite Toronto situation there. You can't have 3 defensemen making $8 million a year or whatever it's going to be. Right. So
no, there's a team that's already doing that. They're called San Jose.
No, I know. We've seen how that's worked. Trading Dumoulin, Mike Dorles. I don't think that's going to happen.
Not when they're trying to make the playoffs.
No, I think actually he's one of their few upside players on defense.
Right.
Maybe in the summer because he's got a movable contract.
Yeah, I think that he's one of those guys that he definitely makes the Penguins better. He's better than most of the Penguins defensemen that they have.
Can we?
One more question here. Do I think the Flyers? I do think Gaudreau will be a Flyers still this season? No. But I don't think. But I think the draft is going to be really interesting with Johnny Gaudreau. That's all I'll say. From talking to people, I think the draft and Johnny Gaudreau.
I think that's
he's going to be one of those players we're going to be talking about a lot at the draft.
Especially if Calgary disappoints, and right now they're disappointing.
Right. Now go ahead, Mike. We'll get into. Tomorrow. I'm going to be writing about all the defensemen available at the trade deadline. That's going to be my article for tomorrow, so we can talk about that more tomorrow.
I think the only way the Flyers are getting Gaudreau is if they're getting rid of Gostisbehere in that trade or getting rid of Voracek in another trade. Otherwise, I don't think they're going to do it.
Yeah, Brandon Montour will be on that list.
He's on that list too. He's number 4 on my list of defensemen. So
now we have to finish the show with this. Alex Ovechkin is a scum bucket. He's one of the best players in the league. He's one of the best players in NHL history, but he is a scum bucket. And anybody who saw what he did to Trent Frederic, okay, I know Trent Frederic cross-checked him, checked him a little bit. He was trying to goad him into something, and instead of Ovechkin dropping the gloves, he cup checks him. He gets a $5,000 fine for spearing, which I don't think was spearing. It was a cup check. It was
it was spearing, Mike. I saw the slowdown of it. It was spearing.
Oh, okay. So but this is the thing. If it was Tom Wilson, if it was Brad Marchand, if it was Brendan Gallagher, that's a 10-gamer. No doubt in my friggin' mind. None.
Okay.
And this guy, because he's a superstar, he gets away with this crap. He's done this 3 or 4 times. I'm sick and friggin' tired of it.
I will say this. He is getting great favoritism like Gretzky did and other greats. There's no question.
Yeah.
He should have gotten a spearing penalty in that game. He should have. And he got no penalty in the game. That's how you know something's wrong here. You can't continue. Yeah. This is where I have a problem with the refereeing. You can't continue to find guys after the fact for obvious things that happen in the game, and there's no penalty in the game. Now, I got to tell you, if there was a penalty in that game, there was a chance Boston could have tied up that game, right?
Yeah.
But they didn't do that. They didn't call it.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. There's no penalty is astonishing.
Ovechkin has no history of spearing. He has a history of being a scum bucket.
Right, but it doesn't even matter.
A cheap shot artist.
Ovechkin is an emotional guy, and he definitely doesn't stop his emotions at some times.
And I get it. Look, people were having fun with it. Hey, Trent Frederic's trying to push around the old tough guy, and the old tough guy taught him a lesson. Fine. I don't care about the $5,000 fine. I care about that it wasn't called in the game. That is my biggest problem.
Yeah. Right. That's true.
Maybe I'm oversensitive about it because of 1993. Maybe I am.
Drink. Hey, woohoo! 1993.
Okay. On that note.
Yeah. The Panthers will also be in on Savard. There's no two ways about that. I mean, Zito being there knows him in Columbus. They could use another defenseman like that. The Panthers are an interesting situation because how do you how far do you try to go at the deadline when you've got Tampa in your division and you know what you got to deal with there? I think there would be nothing more fantastic than a second-round matchup between the Panthers and the Lightning to get out of that division. I think that would be it'd be great for hockey. It would be they haven't played in the playoffs, the concept of these two teams in Florida playing each other in the playoffs, one being the, mighty Tampa Bay Lightning Stanley Cup champions, the other being these upstart Florida Panthers. That series just has.
Yeah, I think they could fill half the building in Florida.
They would at least fill half the building if they were allowed to fill half the building. But yeah, they would, I think that series. Well, that's a sellout series. Come on, that's like people are going to
go look back the last time they sold out in the playoffs.
But they haven't been this good, and they also haven't. You're also playing Tampa. The Stanley. Yeah, that's going to be frigging amazing.
The last time they sold out at the BB&T Center, it was when one of two teams was playing. Montreal or Toronto, and it was in January when all the snowbirds were down in Florida. Otherwise, that Tuesday night when you see like nobody in the stands, that's the normal thing in Florida. As good of a team that is, and it's a shame. As good of a team as that is right now, even if they allowed 100% and there was no COVID, you'd have more empty seats than there were fans.
Here's what you have to think. I've done a lot of research on this, and talking to my friends down there. The interesting thing about the Miami situation is, we all think of it like if I would the stereotype around the NHL is the Panthers fans are New Yorkers who moved down there. Right? That's a stereotype. There's lots of New Yorkers in Miami, so Panthers hockey fans are New Yorkers who moved to Miami because the Cubans coming up to Miami, they generally don't have a big interest in hockey, so it's like it's whatever. But talking to people down there, they do a lot of research, and I'm talking to some people who work with the Panthers, and the interesting thing for the Panthers is their season tickets every year are like doubling in the amount of people who are under 30 buying it. So the Panthers are, if the Panthers can survive, which is a big if, a couple years here, they have the potential to do what Tampa did, which is Tampa has a really young crowd.
All right, here's what I did. In my super sleuthing, the last time I could find a sellout at the BB&T for the NHL was October of 2015, and some guy named Chris Peters wrote the article.
I think I know that guy, Russ.
I know, and it was opening night, 2015.
I think I have no question that they would sell out every game.
They would not sell out
in good times. In good times in a Tampa series.
I think they would sell out if they moved that team to Quebec City.
Yeah, they're not selling out.
We're not going to talk about that yet.
Would they have?
I'm not saying it's not possible.
They'd have a decent crowd, though. I'll give you that.
They have a what?
They would have a decent crowd, but they would not sell out.
A playoff series against Lightning?
Heck, unless they're handing out free tickets like
no, there's no way. They're back in the playoffs. They win the first round. I'm talking about the second round playoff series against Lightning. That is selling out for no other reason than even makes it happen.
They've been in the same division for years, and it is not a legitimate. It is not a heated rivalry. It's not like
they haven't had that moment. They need this kind of moment. This is what they need. They need to play in the playoffs, and to have like a big underdog versus the champions. It's the perfect environment for what could be a very dramatic. I mean, it's not that much different than Columbus and Tampa in some ways because you could see it really. It'll be really interesting. Anyway,
we'll ask Kevin tomorrow. Definitely.
We'll talk to Kevin about tomorrow. All the time after today. Thank you everybody for joining. Remember, you can go to patreon.com/hockey and support the show. We'd really appreciate it. Some more of you guys have done it lately. At some point, we don't push it that hard, but at some point we're going to run out of money and we're going to have to push it harder. So please, just don't make us into like an NPR pledge drive, and don't make us have to remind you all the time. We try our best to entertain you every day a little bit, and get you through a couple hours of your quarantine. And we've been here through the whole thing.
If you give us a donation of $10, we'll throw in a box set of Downton Abbey.
Really?
No, not really.
Oh, the PBS. I understand.
We'll give you his copy of the
Eagle. HockeyBuzz tote bag. The HockeyBuzz tote bag. We'll give you that one. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey.
Oh, Mike, hold it up. There you go. Mike will give you that.
We'll talk to you later. Get out of here.